Because there's so many people attending the show and Milano is so busy during that week that there's taxis and Ubers are very limited. That's the first part.
Yeah.
And then the second one is every time.
It is airtight. Every time you're in there, I mean, you're shoulder to shoulder. Make sure you watch your bag because there are pickpocketers.
But it's basically like, you know, happy hour.
Oh, yeah.
Every day.
Every day,
All
every
day.
hour.
Great. So let's also talk about the gelato. we have a bit of a fascination, addiction, I don't know, to the gelato.
That's one of my favorite parts. The pasta, the pizza, the wine, and you can't go wrong.
Barrel spritz.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't go wrong. Definitely.
Right? It was a more casual, whereas some of the other ones seem a little bit more buttoned up and very proper, and you feel like you have to be very quiet. But this better watch out that we don't dine and dash. And the guy had no idea what that was. So I thought that was pretty funny. Hello everyone, and welcome to Design Discussions with Nadine. I am Nadine and I'm here with Grace. I'm sure you might recognize this beautiful face from a previous episode. And also, if you've been following along with me, you can see her in a lot of my recent travel videos. So how are you doing, Grace, today?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to recap one of our favorite trips that we've gone on together recently.
Yes, so Grace is the owner and founder of EYB Marketing. So she accompanies me on a lot of my trips. So we're going to do a, like she said, recap of our most recent one to Milano Design Week. So we're going to give some tips. We're going to talk about our experiences, and this is going to be great for people that have never been to Salone before. And hopefully this video can help anyone out there that's looking to go next year.
Yeah.
So the first thing I want to start touching on is accommodations when you travel to Milano for the show. We stayed in an Airbnb, which was beautiful.
Yeah, I loved the Airbnb. You know, it just fits in right in with the locals, and we were close to the Red Line, the metro.
Yeah, so we stayed 2 stops away from the fairgrounds in Rho, which is where Salone takes place every year. And it was very convenient. So we didn't have to take an Uber or a taxi. And that's one of the things that I highly suggest not doing when you're attending the show for a couple of reasons. Because there's so many people attending the show and Milano is so busy during that week that there's taxis and Ubers are very limited. That's the first part.
Yeah.
And then the second one is it's very expensive. So if you're having to take an Uber or a taxi to and from the show every day and then in the evenings to kind of get around, it can get pretty expensive.
Expensive, and it can get inconvenient, you know, because with the red lines, you can just follow the map and go wherever you need to very seamlessly.
And the great part about it too is when you exit the red line, the exit of it is literally right at the entrance of the show entrance. So it's so convenient for people, and that's great. So you haven't traveled too many metros, right?
I've been to Portugal, and well, I guess Portugal was the only other metro I've been on. Well, in New York.
Yeah.
So.
But so, I mean, what I want to talk about as far as that too is because, like I mentioned, the show is so busy. Let's talk a little bit about how jam-packed the metros were every time.
It is airtight. Every time you're in there, I mean, you're shoulder to shoulder. Make sure you watch your bag because there are pickpocketers. But it's very safe too. I mean, there's a lot of people, but you feel safe while you're there, and you know, it's a good time.
Yeah, they even make an announcement on the train to watch out for pickpockets. And I've been to many places in Europe and traveled metros very frequently, and that's the first time. The first time I went to the Milano Design Week, that was the first time I ever heard that, and I think they only play that message during that because there's a lot of tourists that come. There's a lot of attendees. So 361,000 attendees attend Milano Design Week. And that's crazy to me. I've been to many other shows. I go to KBIS every year, High Point in North Carolina. And this is, of course, the biggest show in the world. So anybody who has never been to Salone before, you're definitely going to notice that if you've been to the other shows, that it's something to see.
Yeah, it definitely is. There's so many people and so many vendors. It's really, truly a great experience.
2,000 vendors from 35 countries attend this.
You know, it's insane,
Yeah,
and the booths that they have are just some of them are so outstanding, and
yeah, definitely extravagant. So if you've attended any of the other shows around the US, you're going to see what I would say was typical or average booths, right? But
mhm.
that's definitely not what you see at Salone. They're very extravagant, as big as regular showrooms.
Oh, yeah,
And we can also talk about the food that you find outside of the show, which is still on the same grounds, but it's basically like, happy hour
oh,
every
yeah.
day,
Every day,
all
every hour.
day. Great food. So it's not like just sandwiches and pizzas that what you might like find at other shows. It's real
Yeah,
food
exactly,
and
it's
multiple places to choose from. Prosecco bars and
yeah.
coffee bars and, you know, lots of things to choose from for people. So that's great.
Yeah, they have Aperol spritzes. Everywhere you go, you're always gonna find one, and, you know, if you need a coffee break, I mean, there's it's just great out there to just relax in between, when you need break points in the day, and, I mean, of course, the food is amazing,
Yeah.
so we
But
loved
you
it.
definitely do because I think anybody that has attended any kind of show knows that these things are pretty exhausting. But when you attend a show that's overseas and you have the jet lag thrown in there, I think, there's definitely a more exhausting part of it. There was, a few days where I didn't want to wake up because we had a couple of days of show, walking around, and then the exhaustion from the jet lag is still in there. So it's kind of like, you have to take the time to also enjoy other things around and not just focus purely on business, which I think
Absolutely.
is a lot of people tend to do that because I think it's hard. You're traveling for business, so you want to get as much in as possible, but you have to take the time. And we're going to talk about that in a minute as far as what you can do and where you can go and what my suggestions are after visiting the show multiple times to enjoy the whole experience of what is Milano.
Absolutely. You know, you've gotta have a little fun in between and make sure that you get rest. You know, don't be too hard on yourself when you're trying to get over the jet lag and, you know, on your feet all day. Take the rest when you need to, but, you know, have a mix of both in there.
Yeah. And the other thing is you're going to see when you exit the metro and you walk towards the show entrance, the lines are going to seem so astronomical and you're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to be standing in this line for hours." But that is so not the case. Like how
No.
quickly does it move when there's so many people in line to get in?
I felt like within 5 to 10 minutes we were in. I mean, it goes by very fast. It can feel daunting when you're getting off
Hmm.
the red line and there's just crowds of people, but it really goes by so quick and you
Yeah.
can get in very easily.
Yeah. And another pro tip is for the first couple days of the show, it's very busy, of course. So I would suggest starting from the back end of the show and working your way forward as the days go on, because everybody tends to start at the beginning. As soon as you enter, you want to kind of go from this way, this building to this building, and then work backwards. But it's definitely better to work your way from the back to the front. So that way you're not fighting as many crowds. So
Yeah.
that's my little tip.
Very helpful for sure when you're there to, you know, have your own space, not feel like you're on top of everybody else and see what you want to.
And of course, the fact that this show is the biggest in the world, if you're looking to attend, I highly recommend planning way ahead.
Oh yeah.
So once they release the dates and you're able to get your tickets and you know exactly when you'll be traveling, it's usually about 6 months that you want to definitely start looking for either Airbnbs or hotels. I prefer Airbnbs just because I feel like it's a more comfortable way to travel. I travel a lot and I tend to, unless it's a quick trip in and out, I really like to do Airbnbs. But they fill up fast because of that 361. Actually, that was a record breaking 361,000 attendees this year from 100,000 more from 2022.
It's insane. It's growing like crazy.
So it really
So,
is. So I highly suggest definitely planning and looking for hotels and Airbnbs way in advance because you want to get the right one on the red line, closer to row to the fairgrounds. So that way, you're not trying to scramble around and try to find something and then having to do the Uber and taxi because
yeah.
you don't have access to the red line. So that's very important.
Exactly. And if they're already growing so fast, you know, 100,000 more people than last year, I can't imagine what this upcoming year is going to be like.
Yeah, I have a feeling that some of that has to do with COVID as far as the last few years. But the fact that this was a record breaking, which means the whole time that the show has been going on, that's the most attendees that they've had. So it's amazing. Um, Now, also for those who don't know, the Salone does every other year kitchens. So last year was based on mostly rugs, furniture, all the furnishings, a little bit of bathrooms, but every other year they only do kitchens. And the kitchen one is the most exciting one for me, of course. I love to see all the new technologies that they have and all of the new stuff. But it's great to go if you're in any kind of the design industry to try to make it to the year where they do kitchens because that's the best one in my opinion.
Yeah, and I keep thinking about the Jessie coffee faucet. It was such a cool thing to see. I mean, they have so many new designs coming out, so it's fun to see
Yeah,
them
and when
all.
you can get ahead and see those things ahead of time, it's so fun. I love
Yes,
that.
I love it.
So we talk about now the show goes on for 6 days. So that's a lot longer than a lot of shows that go on in the US. They're usually, 3, 4 days. And of course, because it's so large, that's one of the reasons why they have to have it for more days because you cannot work your way through that fair in 3 days. It's not possible.
No, you need a lot more time than that to do the whole thing.
Yeah. So, of course, everybody wants to get going straight off the bat those first 1 or 2 days, but of course, it's very busy. But if you really want to make good connections with vendors, it's a good idea to definitely stick around to the end or come more towards the end and do your time there because that's when you're going to get more of an opportunity to meet more of the people in the companies, especially Italian companies. They have more of the owners attend there. So if you want to really sit down and get to know them and talk business, that's a better thing to do is to do it at the end because a lot of people end up leaving after that third, fourth day.
Yeah.
So that's another little pro tip for you guys. And I want to talk more about the things that you can do outside of the fair, outside of Salone. So we're going to get into the fun stuff, but this event goes on through the whole city of Milano. So it's not just in the fairgrounds. There's showrooms doing events everywhere, inside
Oh
the
yeah.
city, outside of the city. They have, happy hours, open showrooms where you can come and, look around. So you definitely want to look at what's going on throughout the whole week because you can see a whole lot more by checking those events. And typically, Salone's website has a list of those events too posted, so you can look and see kind of what you want to do outside of the fairgrounds and meet up with people, meet up with vendors, and enjoy some stuff outside of the hustle and bustle of the of the actual show itself. So that's
Yeah.
important to know because it's not like the US or like KBIS where it just takes place basically just inside of the event center. It's all around the city.
Exactly, especially in the Brera Design District, you can
Yes.
see all the showrooms in there and, some of the vendors too, if, when you do have those conversations with them, will invite you to their showrooms outside of the actual show.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about when you're traveling over there, if you're going to stay for the week. Of course, like I said, you're going to be going for business and you want to make business connections. But let's talk about now what we can do and what we did, what we experienced this year, some of the places that people can go and what they can do to enjoy and relax because you have to do that. You're traveling so far for this event, you want to take at least a couple days to enjoy Milano. So let's get a little bit into that. What we did.
Yeah. So I'm sure if you've seen anything about Milano on Instagram or Pinterest, you've probably seen their beautiful rooftops that overlook the Duomo. And that was one of my favorite parts is sitting, having an Aperol Spritz and getting to overlook the city. So I would definitely check out the Teresa Duomo 21.
That was another hidden gem because
Yes.
it's not like it's out there where you can see it when you're walking around. Really, you're not really going to notice it. You did some research to find that.
Yes. So I did some research on some social media sites to see how were people getting up to these rooftops because they had just gorgeous views, and you have to go in under the stores underneath to take an elevator up. So it's definitely they're hidden gems, but they are must see sites.
So we're going to insert a picture so everybody can see the picture that you took and the view that they can uh, see from sitting in that rooftop. It was just beautiful. I love that.
And it wasn't busy either. We were able to sit and you don't feel like you're like crowded by a bunch of tourists. It was very peaceful.
Which is amazing because with so many people that are there, especially in that Duomo area, you would think that there would be a long wait.
Yeah.
Or there would be so many people to where you can't really enjoy it. So that's great to have that where you can enjoy a great atmosphere without being too crowded.
Exactly. It's the best part.
Yeah. So let's also talk about the gelato. We have a bit of a fascination, addiction, I don't know, to the gelato. We joked about it because we couldn't even get it to dinner before we stopped at gelato. I said, well, and this is the one thing that I tell my kids not to do.
Yeah.
You don't get you don't get dessert before dinner, but we did.
Yeah, a couple times. Don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
But it was great.
But I don't remember the name of the gelato place that we hit up pretty much every day. But I can insert a picture on the map. So if anybody's
Yeah.
going to attend, they can go there. It was just, I don't think you can go wrong with pretty much any gelato place that you
No.
find. But this one was particularly really good. So
Yeah, I recognized the same guy would check us out every single day.
yeah, I think he was probably at some point going like, these people are back again. Like, but that's good. I mean,
Yeah.
like, if he's the owner or he works there, he's probably like, wow, they must really love our gelato if they're coming back day after day,
Yeah.
like 6 days in a row.
One of the other must-see spots in Milan is Navili. This place is gorgeous. There's so many shops and restaurants directly on the water.
Mhm.
And it's on the outskirts, so you're not crowded by tourists, so we could just have a nice dinner by ourselves.
Navili is one of my favorite places. I love it there. I think it's just being on the canal, and like she said, there's so many restaurants to choose from, and it's just a great place. And actually, I have been there in years past, and if you go earlier in the day, there's not too many tourists. But there's been a few occasions where it was quite crowded, and they have music playing. So if you want to do a little bit more fun,
Yeah.
you can do that in the evenings too. Fridays and Saturday nights, it kind of amps up a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really nice. It's a nice area to go to if you're looking for something to relax and have fun and
Yeah.
eat great food.
Yeah, and get more gelato.
Yeah. Another little tip I want to suggest, there's a world famous little restaurant not too far from Duomo, Luini Panzerotti. And I'll explain to you a little bit about what that is. So it's basically just a little walk-up restaurant, basically mostly for breakfast. And I would describe what they serve as an Italian empanada. Okay, so it's this fried little thing that is folded in half, and it's stuffed with all kinds of different things, cheeses, meats, or different kinds of cheeses. And it's kind of hard to determine because they have so many options which one to choose from, what flavor, I don't know, or what kind. But you can't go wrong with any of those. So I would suggest definitely stopping by there too. And of course, when you see a really long line
Oh yeah.
every day, you know that it's good. So
Yeah.
I would highly suggest that place too.
Definitely. I want one right now.
I know. It's hard to then go back now and talk about and think about all the stuff that we had because it makes you miss it.
Oh yeah, I mean the food over there is just amazing. It's nothing like you can get here. I mean, it's good. That's one of my favorite parts. The pasta, the pizza, the wine, and you can't go wrong
Apparel
with it.
spritz.
But yeah, exactly. I mean, you can't go wrong.
Now, the other place that we ate at was a Michelin star restaurant. And traveling around, I always like to eat at Michelin star restaurants because it's the experience. I mean, of course, the food is great in most any Michelin star, but it's more about the experience than anything. So Ristorante Bertone happened to be the one that we went to. And the differences between that particular Michelin star and some of the others that I've been to, I would say, is it's more casual. Right?
Definitely.
It was a more casual, whereas some of the other ones seem a little bit more buttoned up and very proper, and you feel like you have to be very quiet. But this one, you know, the waiters were so nice and more casual. We even had a joking experience with the waiter. And as anybody knows, you know, Michelin star restaurants are, you know, quite pricey. So somebody on my team made a joke to the waiter. about better watch out that we don't dine and dash. And the guy had no idea what that was. So I thought that
Yeah.
was pretty funny.
We taught him what dine and dash means, and we were joking with him afterwards, and you could see all the waiters were kind of
Looking around like,
like,
really? Are they going to
yeah.
actually dine and dash? Of course, they knew we were joking, but it
Yeah.
was just funny how, and of course, maybe I wouldn't expect them to really know what that was. It's an American thing, or I'm sure it's different in Italian.
Yeah.
But they really didn't understand what that was. And we're like, don't worry, we're just joking.
Yeah. Trust me, we'll pay.
Yeah. So that was funny. And then and the other thing about that too, I mean, this is kind of a side note about the Italian thing. So everybody is so friendly. You don't really necessarily need to speak Italian when you go to the show because most everybody speaks English, but it's a nice thing to do is to learn a little bit of Italian, kind of learn at least some of the basics. And so that way, because they love that.
They love it, and you want to immerse yourself in the culture. So that way, it it's another way to learn about another culture
Connect
and
with people.
connect and actually go like a local.
Yeah. And learning Italian isn't that difficult, really. Especially if you already speak Spanish. It's a pretty fairly easy language to learn. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Don't be intimidated,
Yeah.
and especially if you don't know any other languages, don't be intimidated. It's easy to pick up little phrases here and there.
Yeah, so that's important. I would highly suggest that. So getting back to our some of the things that you can do when you're taking that break from the show and you really need to. Let's talk about renting a car and the little trip that we took getting to Lake Como. Was amazing. And it's only about a 45-minute to an hour drive from Milano to Lake Como, but it's something that I highly suggest. So let's talk about that experience there because that was another beautiful thing. It's a bucket list item for a lot of people. And if you're going to Milano for Salone, it's something very easy to do because it's so close.
Exactly. Like she said, it's only like 45 minutes to an hour away. And, we took a car and drove to Lake Como from Milano. And it's a beautiful drive once you get to Lake Como and even before then. I mean, you get to see all of the water and the mountains and the Alps. It's beautiful there. And so we started on Lake Como and had a little lunch break there right on the water. It was a gorgeous day.
Mhm.
And then after we drove over to Bellagio
Yes.
and got to see a 13th century wine cellar and have a little glass of wine there.
And that was another thing that was kind of like a hidden gem because we were just kind of like just walking around. And as anybody who knows has been to Italy or a lot of places in Europe, they have these little tiny little streets. So we kind of just made our way down one of these little streets, and it was this tiny little place that if you weren't paying attention, you would completely miss it. But it was so small and cozy, and the fact that it was 13th century wine cellar is just amazing to sit in there and drink our wine and eat our little cheese, and it was such an experience.
Oh, for sure. It's definitely one of those things that you have to check out if you're in Bellagio.
Yeah. So this was great sitting with you and talking about the experience that we had at this year's Salone. So thank you for attending with me.
Of course. It's so fun to relive.
I know.
Relive our days in
exactly.
Milano.
And of course, giving people some tips, which I love doing, especially for anybody who hasn't been there before. So again, we'll be there next year.
Yes.
If anybody has any questions about anything about Salone and you're thinking about going, please drop your questions in the comments and I will answer those for you. So thanks again. Until next year.
Until next year.